Team, family, today, Jason and I dive into simplicity. We talk about a lot of different things. This is a super dope conversation. What would you highlight, Jay, from it?
Yeah, a big piece of this episode is really drilling down into how do we get the most value out of our lives. We talk a lot about recognizing where we're spending energy on things that are not of value, and how to learn the skill set to prioritize the things that are of value to us so we're getting the most out of this life.
Yeah, the power of simplicity and how it really underpins us finding peace. So everybody listening, dive in, and we'd love to hear from you, and we love you.
Melanie Curtis, Jason Maletsky. Big goals, deep work. Love, fear. Being human. Learning to live in alignment with our values. On the path to our full potential. Trust the journey.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon,
good evening,
and good night.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
All of it.
Hi, everyone. Mel and I are talking about simplicity today. Yep.
Yeah. I'm actually really glad we're talking about this because I consistently need this and need reminding of this because of my prolific nature to be wildly engaged in my existence. The stuff gets piled on and I care about all this stuff, and inevitably things become more complex. And every time I revisit this as a practice, as a concept, as something I need to really prioritize, it helps me. So I'm glad we're doing this for everyone else too.
Me too. This is honestly a huge theme in my life, an ongoing theme that has become more and more and more and more in the foreground, higher and higher and higher in priority, and in literal practice every single day of what is important to me in my life. And I didn't realize how important it's become until the last few years, where I've really seen the changes, in the sense that I've seen the positive effect that they're having on me, and how it's just such a requirement for me. So yeah, it's huge, and there's so many places we can go with it. So
yeah, one of the things I was thinking about in preparation for this talk was simplicity to me also implies boundaries, but it also implies a reflection on what do I want to include in my existence, to your point. What gets my wildly valuable time, attention, energy, heart? What am I going to spend those invaluable resources on? And in our world, God, one of the things I am so excited about, I have no idea if I've shared it on the podcast already. I'm sorry if I have, but I want to share it no matter what, is at the end of 2024, I implemented an automatic email response, basically telling everyone I can't do this anymore. Almost breaking up with my email, where it's essentially if you're a client, if you're a speaking engagement or a speaking opportunity, I'll respond right away. Otherwise, here are a bunch of links, free resources. This is how we can work together. But I just need to lift the pressure of my email inbox off my life. And I cannot tell you, I feel so liberated by just choosing that, because it was a pain point for me that was causing all this complexity. And now that I've just been I'm not doing that anymore, I got to make a change. I got to take responsibility that I'm letting this happen in my existence. So I that's a very specific share, but it's so connected to this, my desire to actionably seek simplicity.
how's that been working for you? How's it going?
Great. And I believe it or not, I've gotten a lot of people responding, being I love this email response. And I'm encouraging people to take it and use it for themselves. It's a legit. I'm surprised, to be honest, at how much energy has lifted off my shoulders, just feeling like I don't have to respond to everything that I get. And again, that's not a lack of respect for outreach, because I have deep respect for outreach. I really do. It's more in the lane of, how Tim Ferriss kind of talks about he gets to decide about who he's going to respond to and what he's going to put his time and energy on. And I just feel like I'm finally at that place. I'm grateful for it, super grateful for it. I feel like it's a marker of my growth and success in my career, but as a person also. And it's just something I need to do, and I'm just unapologetically doing it now and telling people respectfully and lovingly why, right? So anyway, it's been good for me, really good.
I'm really happy to hear that. First of all, I've seen you kind of in your doom spiral of
Mhm.
doing, right? And the busy bee Melanie, like
Yep.
having worked with you for the last, 7 years now, it could be sometimes I'm just like, oh, there she goes, right? She's just whirling dervish, kind of Tasmanian devil of busyness.
Yep.
And I've seen how it takes its toll on you. And I'm really
Mhm.
happy to see you making these changes to improve your own personal boundaries with yourself, is what it is. It's like, it's not a boundary to anybody else. It's a boundary to your own, allowing yourself to behave in certain ways or not behave in certain ways.
Yep.
Um, I want to speak about a little bit how this has come up for me it's come to me through a few different ways. One is through art,
Mhm.
specifically the practice of art. And then the other is in flight. And both of these mirror back to meditation. So I'm going to go on a little story here. For the last 5, 6 years or so, I spent my days working as creative director at Flight One, and deeply daily working with our art director, Benjamin Ford. And the three words that we would share back and forth to remind each other and to everybody that we're working with constantly would be less is more. Less is more. And there's always this feeling when we're making things to as though we need to include more things. We don't want to miss this. We don't want to forget about that. We want to, like, there's all this stuff we want, like we really want to include it. We feel like if we leave it out, then it's being forgotten or left behind or ignored, or something is undone in some way. But it always comes back to the foundational element that less is more. It's more higher value when there's less on the page, you know? So this
Yeah.
this overarching theme has been so predominant in my day-to-day, in how we whittle down the message that we're sending to the world, right? And that has mirrored itself in I'll pivot it over to my flying, right? When my entire competitive canopy piloting career, and now even more so in my paragliding activities, in flight, less is more, in the sense that when you watch a pilot who is incredibly skilled, it looks as though they do nothing. They just sit
Yep.
perfectly still, and you only make the movements or the inputs that are required and nothing else. No additional extra stuff.
Yep.
Any extra stuff just takes away from and disturbs the energetic flow that is taking place. And so we can look at birds, for example. The way that a bird manages its energy, because it's finite, right? They have to eat in order to get the energy to be able to flap their wings. And food is a precious resource. And the amount of movement they can do is going to depend. It measures their whole health, their whole wellness, their whole being is determined by their overall energy stores, right? Like what they're available to, what they can do. So they're masters at economy. Most birds are not fat, right? Most birds are very lean, and
Yeah.
they use only the most minimal amount of energy that they need to in order to fly. So these two examples, in art, less is more, and in flight, less is more, right? Just what's required. And now we're going to bring that back to the meditation practice. And I have a whole bunch of other places I want to go with this, but I'm going to keep it to these three to start off with.
To start.
Yeah, just to start. In the meditation practice, what I've learned in my time with mindfulness is we're never able to turn off the mind, right? The mind is it's a chatterbox. It just does its thing. There's times where we can move through different types of brain waves, different stages of how overwhelmed or engaged we are with what our mind is doing, or how separate and how observant we are to what our mind is doing. There's
Right.
all these different levels, and they're literal different brain waves, right? So here's the piece of this that I feel is really, really important when we bring it back to like our everyday life, okay? Because I think that's the main place that this is really going to show its value. When we reach like a theta brainwave, we're able to just be completely observant to what's happening within our thoughts. And as soon as bubble of thought appears, it's noticed and it pops, essentially. And then there's a quiet space again. There might be no thought for a moment or two. And the next bubble of thought that appears, it's noticed right away. And that state of peacefulness, quiet in the head, just at peace with oneself, is like the most trance-like state. Is so peaceful and so comforting and so at ease, so easeful, right?
Yes.
That for me is one of my daily spiritual practices, is working towards reaching for this place of ease within one's own body and within one's own mind.
Yeah. I love this. I am very much recommitted to my meditation practice this year. I feel very intuitively clear that it is connected to everything I want to do in my life, all the dreams that I have. It feels in an unknown way without clarity of how the connection is, but it feels very clear to me. Like it's a deep spiritual knowing that this is a critical practice. What I've been doing recently is Adyashanti, I think that's his name, on the Waking Up app. He has a series of meditations that uh, center around stillness
Yeah.
and physical stillness,
Yep.
and how that, as a commitment in your meditation practice, is a doorway to what you're talking about, among other things, of course. But why I bring that up is that that's one of my tendencies, is to be doing, to constantly be doing. My physical body is very, very just, it's a powerful thing for me in this lifetime. And so when I am wanting to avoid that, or I'm having difficulty, I will fidget. And so to quiet that, to get to build a relationship with that desire to fidget, to become more aware of it, that mindfulness of it, it helps really just seriously simplify my connection to my physical body, allowing me to connect to those more deeply peaceful places inside my meditation. I'm very grateful for that practice, because it's really, in a very short time, helping me a lot.
How are you implementing it? What's your structure for that look like?
My structure is I do my meditation in the morning. I do 30 minutes minimum, and I usually lay down. Sometimes I'll sit up. I'm noticing that if I do it too early, like I've woken up too early, I'll fall asleep. So I'm considering how to make sure that I'm not just using my starting 5-10 minutes as a way to go back to sleep. But that's how I've been doing it. You know, when I do stay awake, it's Yeah, it's super powerful. I mean, when I sleep too, I'm allowing that to be something that happens, but I also am noticing that it could be an avoidant piece where I'm
Are
like, oh,
you
I just want to sleep longer. So I'll lay down and do my meditation and just maybe go back to sleep. It's more like I want to make sure I engage in the practice.
is that practice of sitting in silence in stillness, or is it including a guided
It's the
voice
guided,
or music or anything
yeah,
like that? Yeah,
it's the guided voice and the music on the Waking Up app with this particular series around stillness with Adi Ashanti.
gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I find that
currently,
I have the same, like if I'm still in a dream state. And one of the things that Joe Dispenza teaches a lot about is that we're trying to get to that dream state wavelengths in our brain waves. I actually bought a tool that measures brain waves
currently.
and it records
Wow,
them, and I'll wear it when I'm doing a meditation. And what it does is gives you live feedback to tell you what brainwave state you're in, and it uses like a pre-programmed set of sounds. Like I'll set it to rain for when my thoughts are noisy, and birds chirping when I'm in the brainwaves that I want to be in. So,
cool.
and you can also include music in there. It's called a muse. You can have music, you can have the overlaid guided voice and all this, and it's a really cool tool to help to kind of, it's a coaching aid to learn what is it I'm trying to do here, right? Like I don't know when I'm doing it right or wrong because there's all
Yeah.
this thought in here regardless, and it actually helps you to learn like, oh, this is where
Mm.
we're doing it right, and this is where we're actually very busy in the head, kind of thing.
What is that tool? That
It's called a
sounds very
muse.
mused.
Yeah, muse. Um, but contric the whole idea of this like training aid's fantastic, but what do we really want is to have the skill inherent, right? To understand how this feels without having to be reliant upon technology to be able to implement it. So the reason I asked if you're in a guided is because I mean true kind of what would we say, like traditional, Buddhist meditation, sitting
Mhm.
upright, straight spine, and there's no guide. You're just sitting in stillness and in silence and just observing one's thoughts. It's like the ultimate simplicity, right? There's this whole banter about um, what are you doing with your life if you're even just sitting there cross-legged on the floor for an hour doing nothing? Like literally doing the least amount of anything that you could possibly do is actually one of the most powerful skills that we can develop. It's
Yeah.
so, the irony of life is just so richly, the tapestry, the beautiful irony that's woven into everything. It's like the least amount of thing that you could possibly do is one of the most engaging and powerful skills that we could possibly have for centering ourselves.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
One of the things I wrote on my list when I, again, thinking about what to talk about today was doing less. Like just doing less. And again, I'm not suggesting that we can't deeply immerse in our lives and selves. It's more, I think, from this perspective for me in part of what really most deeply knowing myself. And if I don't have these sort of deeply simple, like times, chapters where I am doing less, phases, whatever you want to call it, then I'm not really having the whole scope of my human experience. I'm not really actually, you know what I mean? Like getting to know myself in all the ways that I possibly can and experiencing life in this form in all the ways that I possibly can. Like for me, that's a core value. You know what I mean? So when I think about simplicity too, I also think about core values and going back to the concept of what am I going to spend my super valuable time, energy, heart, existence on? I love that. It's one of the things I really do care about is experiencing my life wholly, fully, completely in all the ways that I can, which is inclusive of having different experiences. So if I just spent my whole existence being a super busy person, working, type A, high achieving, da, 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 that's fine. There's no problem with that. but that wouldn't be a truly values aligned life for me.
I've been struggling with managing that kind of it's hyperactiveness is what it is. It's my ADHD nature. I've been a hyperactive kid. I went to the special ed classes. I had the temper tantrums and that obsessive compulsiveness, right? Being obsessive is part of who I am. It's both a positive and a negative. The
Yeah.
attention deficit and the hyperactive disorder, it goes up and down in its intensity. Sometimes I can be very calm and collected and focused and very, very focused. And other times I'm very scatterbrained and really just ping ponging around. And that, how do I want to say this? Learning a practice that helps me to just to even see and understand where I'm spending energy unconsciously and
Mm-hmm.
when I get trapped in loops of kind of spinning my tires, no traction,
Yep.
no value. I'm using energy in my life, in my day, and the only thing I have, the only currency that I have is time, right? If I'm choosing that my time is going to get spent on a task or a thought or whatever that's just kind of whether it has I choose to deem it as having value or not, right? Is this big play. And then now as I'm getting older and I'm not having the greatest health lately, and I've been really forced to do less.
Right.
I'm spending a lot of time resting and recovering, and that has been really difficult with that nature of I feel like I just want more out of my day and
Yeah.
I just can't. It's been a real internal battle to be able to let go of this, overarching feeling like I need to be meeting some goal that I've set for myself.
It's powerful. Yeah, man. That is, oof. I imagine that is incredibly challenging, and I've thought about that myself as someone who has not had health challenges, like in reflecting on your experience, what you've shared with me, on other people in my life, loved ones that I have physical health limitations, as it were. And I hesitate to use that word, but like challenges currently. And it's almost a scary thought because I haven't had that experience. This is sort of dovetails nicely off of what I just said about wanting to have the scope of human experience. I know that I haven't had that experience at all. So I would be a vast beginner in being, you know what I mean, having a physical challenge. And so that in a way almost scares me because I'm like, oh, damn, that would be, I imagine, really fucking hard for me because of exactly how you just described it for yourself.
Yeah. I feel like in my personal journey through this lifetime, the universe has been ever present in an action that is whenever I'm doing too much, the universe kind of bitch slaps me
Yep,
and
yep.
sits me down and it's like, you need to do less.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
usually through physical injury or illness to where I'm just laid down.
yep. The sponsor of today's episode is Great Spirit Farm. Yes. Love having Great
Yeah.
Spirit Farm with us, and specifically their ayahuasca microdose tincture. It is a natural MAOI antidepressant and anti-anxiety. Great Spirit Farm describes the feeling as a warm hug. It can help you access deep creativity, flow, intuition, and improve vivid dream recall, which actually has totally been my experience.
So what is exactly in the bottle is the ayahuasca vine itself. So this is a tincture extraction, double extraction tincture that contains the Banisteriopsis caapi vine. Now, the particular vine that this has been extracted from has been growing in Florida now for over 25 years. And the ayahuasca vine does not contain DMT, so that makes this tincture 100% legal in all 50 states.
Yeah, Great Spirit Farm recommends starting with 1 to 3 dropperfuls and increasing your dose gradually from there until you feel the effects. There are no known contradictions with antidepressants, and always check with your doctor and only take as directed.
And what's really great about what Great Spirit Farm is doing is they're making sure that 10% of all the sales are returned to the Shipibo tribe, honoring the medicine's indigenous roots with active reciprocity. Now, if you want to try this tincture out for yourself, you can go to the website that is ayadose.com, AYADOSE.com, and you can enter our discount code TTJ10 to get 10% off your order. Again, that's ayadose.com and all caps TTJ10 to get 10% off your order.
I got COVID at New Year's and was
Yeah.
flat on my back for 3 full days, which is very short comparatively. And weirdly, the 4th day, I was just like better. I just was like back. I mean, I had some congestion, but pretty much was back to myself. But yeah, same. The universe keeps me in line, no
Yeah.
doubt.
I want to pivot for a second and kind of just
Mhm.
go down a different lane for a minute here. Is one of the choices that I've made in my life towards simplicity it's actually been part of my life for a very long time, since my early 20s. When I first moved from Canada to the US, I had to basically pick up all my belongings, put them in a vehicle, and head to my new life. And so that meant a very limited amount of personal belongings. It
Yeah.
meant everything that I own can fit in my van. And I lived that very nomadic life for pretty much my whole life. There were periods where, I owned a house for 10 years and, had a 4-bedroom house, a 2-car garage, a den, an office, a living room, all the extra things, and, the patio, the backyard, and accumulated a lot of belongings, right? A lot of stuff, a lot
Yep.
of things. And we talk about the energy connection, right? Like the baggage, like how much stuff are you carrying around? Well, in 2019, I built my Sprinter van, and in 2020, I sold the house and packed everything that I felt like I needed, like that I wanted to hold on to and keep for whatever the next version of my life is going to look like. I put it all into one of those shipping pods, loaded up my trailer on the van, and moved out here to Moab, Utah. And that meant culling down my personal belongings in a huge way, because I was in a 4-bedroom house and it was going to be just me. And even then, I kept quite a bit of things, quite a bit of stuff, because I felt like there was a good chance I was going to buy another house fairly soon and probably set it up with rooms to rent and like furnish a place, and like, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
keep a lot of belongings in so that I can, establish this next version of self. And that's not what ended up happening. What ended up happening was the market shot through the roof at that time, and I decided it wasn't a good, wise time for me to invest. And I've gone back to the fully nomadic version. And I included a period there. Like I intentionally said, I'm going to put all my stuff into storage when I get out west, and I'm going to drift a little bit with the van, and I'm going to look for the right place and like let the energy call me to settle down into something that feels right.
Mm-hmm.
And so what this has meant is like there's two parts to this that I want to share that have been huge value for me. One was pulling up the roots and really shaking the tree and going like, what do I really need?
Yeah.
And having a good hard look at like, what is this box of junk that I just have sitting here in the corner taking up space, and get that first pass of getting rid of everything, how powerful that actually was. And then the next one is there's 2 parts to this: is living nomadically living in the van and traveling around, you really, really have to be selective as to what you allow yourself to carry around, because otherwise it's getting in the way. You're
Yep.
tripping over it. It's really, really economizing, your choices of what you need. And I've seen this in my own travel. It's like, every single trip that I go on, when I get back from it, I go, did I wear every piece of clothing that I put in my bag? Or did I travel with a pair of pants that I never actually wore? And learning to not include the things that I'm not going to need in there so that I'm not toting these heavy bags. So living in the van has been wonderful for that. It has really been a powerful lesson. And I want to share this in the sense that if our audience and listeners out there are looking for a way to like try on simplicity, there are so many different ways where we could do it, like living in a bachelor apartment where you have very little storage, very little space, going on extended road trips, van life, travel, these kind of things where we can really like pull back on our total, the literal baggage that we're carrying around with us. And
Yeah.
what I come to found is I've become so adapted to simplicity because of living in the van that now when I move back into an apartment, a house, whatever, I don't want all this stuff back. Like I now keep a very similar set of cookware and the amount of food that I keep and the amount of
Yeah.
items on the shelf. Like it's literally almost the exact same thing that's in the van, just slight bit more for comfort and ease, because the van is a real test.
Yeah, I
It's
bet.
a challenge, right? You're really down to your skinny. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. The other part I wanted to share there is, so that practice is available to anybody, if you want to find a version of life to try on for a bit where you could see what it's like to have that very clean, simple life.
Well,
And
yeah,
then,
and I'll briefly
yeah,
just that's what I did in 2014, 2015 when I did the world tour. I blogged about it. It's again 10 years old now, but it's all there on my blog where I lived out of a backpack, two backpacks. One
yep.
backpack that was my computer and office and mobile business, and one that was my clothes and life, and that was it. And you're right, at least I agree from the perspective of it taught me I just don't need a lot of stuff. It just taught me. Do I like certain things? Do I have too many clothes and accessories, my cool earrings, Yeah, sure, but I enjoy that. But yeah, it also connects me to this ongoing lifelong value of really understanding, and again, from the perspective of moving and moving out, which I've also done in recent years, the energetic weight of things, the literal weight, of course, of carrying, lugging, moving
Mhm.
a bunch of stuff. Like how many times, how many of us have moved and then the same bin or two or whatever comes with us and we haven't touched it in a decade, right? That like really just starting to become a bit more heartless with our things. I say that because we can have that, emotional attachment to stuff, but working on letting go, surrendering to, not needing, so that we can have the experience of the energetic lift when that stuff is actually gone is, I don't know, an experience I would encourage people to lean into. Last thing I'll say before I want to hear the second part of your thought is a website people can check out is called The Minimalists. They have a podcast, a website. They've done a couple of TED Talks about their experience with really, really going hyper minimal as it relates to things. It's really interesting.
So I have a massively powerful life experience in that area with minimalism, which was the Appalachian Trail hike. So that whole process, you literally carry everything for your existence on your back every single day for 6 months. So you learn to prioritize, to say, what do I really like? Where's my comfort needs? Where do they sit in order to be able to, get through the weather and sleep at night and have what I need? But also, I don't want to carry it if I'm not using it, right? Like, if I don't need it, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And over that time, my first wife and I were able to get our pack weights down to a base pack weight of 14 pounds. So that included all of our clothes, tent, sleeping bags, cookware, everything. The only thing not included in that is food or water. So that amount of extra weight would be somewhere between, say, 4 to 10 pounds or 15 pounds at the very most that we would be carrying in food and water. And that minimalist experience really pointed me in a direction for the rest of my life. Coming back from that journey, my lifestyle changed in the sense that all the equipment that I started using for base jumping started to become ultralight equipment. All the equipment I started using for skydiving became ultralight, and literally designing and building ultralight equipment in order to relieve the load and reduce the mass to be able to move quick and light and fast and just feel free, right?
100%.
So just recently I moved into this great new place. I'm super stoked about it. And I committed to staying here for a few years. I told myself, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be here for at least 2 or 3 years. I'm going to take the pressure off myself with all this moving around. And I still have this storage unit, and I basically had it set up into 2 blocks. One half is like storage and housewares, cardboard boxes, bins, furniture, these types of things. The other half of the unit is all shelves and racks and bins, and it's sorted. So it's much like a Mission Impossible locker where the bins are all labeled. They're either skydiving or base jumping or camping or climbing or paragliding or motorbikes or whatever. All the stuff is there. If I want to go grab a toy off the shelf, I've got my kayaks, I've got my stand-up paddle boards, I've got shelves with a workbench and tools. So it's all stuff that I'm using or that I'm actively able to like grab it. It's all my DJ gear is there. I can get to it. But the other half of the unit is all the stuff that I brought from my house, from that 4-bedroom house. It's all the other stuff that I didn't necessarily move into a new place. And when I moved in here, I made a decision, and I've been avidly going through this process for the last couple of months of liquidating everything that I absolutely am not going to use in the next 2 to 3 years.
Nice.
Right? Yep.
Liberating.
Yeah.
Liberating.
And there's a huge emotional thing here is every time I open a box that I haven't looked in 4 or 5 years, and then I recognize, I go, what is it? What is actually in this box? Okay, there's a wok. There's a couple of pots and pans. There's a dish rack. There's a bunch of housewares. And I go, I want this one item for my kitchen, but I don't want the rest of these items. Like if I am able to look at them as just items and say, do these really serve me to bring and fill my cupboard with at home? And if I fill my cupboard, I can't put anything else in it. So do they really serve me? And then why have I kept them? Like, am I just attached to the memories that I had with them? And some things, yes, right? Like I have boxes of photos, memorabilia, things from my life that I cherish. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to keep this. This is my life. These are like real, precious things to me. My baby shoes, some stuff from my mom and dad, this kind of stuff. But the box of housewares, like I grabbed the wok, I put it in the cupboard there. The rest of it, I went down to donation and off it goes. And I'm just going box by box by box. And it's either going for sale. And this is the methodology I've been using, and I'll share it and then I'll shut up for a second, is I every time I go to the storage unit, I keep it really simple on myself emotionally, right? Because simplifying my life means experiencing some of my stuck energy and some of my stuck emotions.
Yes.
So when I go to the storage unit, I don't let myself get distracted. Now, this could be your closet, your basement, your attic, whatever it is. When you're trying to like clear out the clutter in your life, it's about moving emotional energy, right? So when I open that box and I see stuff from my marriage and I feel the feelings associated with it from that part of my life, there's good memories, there's great memories, there's hard memories, there's pain, there's all kinds of different stuff. I limit myself to a very short window of time. And I say, I got to do 3 things while I'm here. I'm going to pick at least one item that I'm going to throw in the trash. There's
Nice.
got to be something I can see that I can throw it away. It's just garbage, right?
Yep.
So I
Yep.
grab something that's garbage, and usually that means I'm able to grab a couple things because it's obvious. You're like, what's garbage? Grab a couple pieces of garbage, throw them in the car. What am I donating? What
Yep.
can I give to somebody else? And I go, this has value to someone, not me. It's not worth selling, but somebody it'll have value for. And so I grab something to take to donation,
Yep.
and then I pick one thing to sell. And I grab one item that I know has enough value that if I put it up on Facebook Marketplace or eBay or whatever, I can offload it. And if it's worth $20 or more, I'll put it up for sale.
Yeah.
And that's been amazing. I've been
Yeah.
making massive headway, and I've made like $2,000 in the last 2 months of
Awesome.
selling stuff off Facebook. And just to, yeah,
It's the ultimate win-win, I feel
right?
like, when you talk about this version of simplifying. Yeah, it is in our culture of accumulation and our culture of purchasing and our culture of buying this will deal with this emotional charge. Like there's so much of that, you know what I mean? Retail therapy, ha ha ha, but it's very
Oh, yeah.
real. That stuff
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff accumulates. Um on the other side of the house, it's can go as far as like a hoarding and really just buying, buying, buying to as that emotional salve. And it's like that's a whole different animal. I certainly occasionally do it myself, you know what I mean? But also temper it with exactly what we're talking about relative to, you know, simplifying, lightening the load. Another thread of the conversation, which I just can't not share about, can't not think about because it's a large part of my existence is entrepreneurially. So
Yeah.
thinking about it from the perspective of what do I do? What service wise or like message wise, what problem do I solve? Like really getting clear and simplified in your message and how entrepreneurially that can have a ton of power. Right. And so obviously I've been sharing about my growth as a keynote speaker and how I'm super focused on that. But a large part of doing that was getting clear and convicted that that is what I am going to say into the world, right? It's a whole nother thing about what am I going to say to the world? What am I teaching about? Peak performance, fear, discomfort, whatever, right? So that's a whole like detailed animal inside of what I actually speak about. But why I bring this up in the conversation of simplicity and peace is also that simplicity has a lot of power. Like you talked
Yep.
about this in terms of, oh my God, how crazy is it when you sit and do absolutely nothing? How actually that's one of the most powerful things you can do for your peace. The same thing applies for business owners,
Yep.
for service providers, for entrepreneurs, for creatives. And I'm not suggesting all creatives should be super narrow, but I'm suggesting recognize the power in simplicity. And again, this conversation go lots of different ways. People are like niche down or serve everybody, but I'm more wanting to touch on when you do find a simple message that really resonates and is aligned with you, there's so much power in that.
The experience that I had with learning to teach is basically this is what I feel like is like the version of art. If you can understand something in its simplest form, like if you're trying
Yeah.
to communicate something to somebody else, and are able to bring it down and say it in its most pure, simple, basic, foundational way, so that it is absolutely only what needs to be said and nothing else. That is like the most beautiful expression ever.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure. For sure. And as it relates to personal peace, I mean, I don't know about you entrepreneurially, Jay, I would love to hear your thoughts about it, but like when I feel clear and I feel simplified in what I'm doing and I don't have so much, because this is something I've been working on the last couple of years, feeling very spread thin. Like I just do too many things. I've had a lot of beautiful opportunities come my way that I'm so grateful for, and it fanned me out in a lot of ways. And that's not a bad thing. It's just I recognize that I'm leaving that phase, that chapter, and I want to be more simplified in my work so that I can access the power that comes with it. And that's exciting. Like it feels more peaceful to me. It not only feels powerful and energetic and in motion in a positive sense, it also feels really peaceful because I'm not constantly questioning or shifting focuses, and it's less frenetic in a massive way that really contributes to my peace.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I've mirrored that throughout my canopy piloting career. Is a great example of choosing to specialize
Yeah,
in such a devoted way where I'm like, I'm not doing free flying jumps. I'm not doing
yeah,
belly formation skydiving jumps. I'm not letting myself get taken away to go do camera flying. I'm like, I am doing this and this only, and specializing. And that like specialization
yeah.
brings the focus in, and then the quality of the output goes up because of that. And I think that's what you're referring to in the entrepreneurial sense, is the less is more, is quality over quantity.
Yep. Yep, totally. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we have to, and it goes back to that first part of the conversation about what do we want to spend our valuable time, energy, heart, life on.
Yeah. Bringing it back to the where you opened up with the emails,
Mm.
that's become something that I've just been avid about with, I am like a frenetic unsubscriber.
I love
If
it.
so, good job to me that
Yeah, go Jay.
I'm years now. I'm into over 2 years of running an empty inbox, and I have
Yeah,
5 email addresses, right, for all different work purposes and personal stuff, and I keep my emails empty. The inbox is not loaded. The inbox gets emptied every single time I go through, and this practice was really hard to get it under control, to develop the skill to be able to keep it simple, because I feel like email is such a great example of how it can just railroad us, where we just
yep,
get run over by this onslaught of incoming junk,
yep,
whether it's people that are just asking for our time, or people that are asking for too much of our time, or just people trying to get our attention, our money, our energy in some way or another. And so I am obsessive. Like when I go down the list, I don't just hit first of all, my goal every time is follow the GTD method, the getting things done method. And I either answer it immediately, file it, schedule it, or trash it. And before I hit trash, I hit unsubscribe. Take that extra second, and just hit unsubscribe, delete it, and then trash it. And then that inflow is getting culled down every single time I do that. Now my inbox is not cluttered because I'm not getting all this junk. And anytime I do subscribe to something new for a new thing that I've signed up for, like doing whatever this new thing, I either set up an automated mailbox to send it to the smart mailbox where it should land, or I allow it to have like 1 week of getting to understand how it's working and then unsubscribe, and it's gone again. And I don't need continued, I don't need to leave that valve open so that the water's constantly running. I got
yeah,
a drink of water. I'm good. Turn it off,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, totally. Ugh. Well, what else did you write down? What else you got?
Yeah. Simplicity.
Big breath. Yeah, I wrote slowing down. That was also on my list. Feels sort of adjacent to simplicity. You know what I mean? I feel like when we talk about frenetic energy that comes with complexity or overwhelm or overload or that type of onslaught in whatever way it might come, slowing down is a tool and skill for me that I'm not that great at, but I consistently come back to it as a practice, whether I have, too many Zoom calls in a day and I write in my little high performance planner coaching tool for myself to like breathe, be present, be patient, right? That's in service to the message of slowing down that I think serves me accessing the power of simplicity, that like very, very micro version of it, as in being present, right? Breathe, be present, be patient. That to me is sort of an embodiment of simplicity, sort of in action, real time.
Yeah. I've got an interesting bridge, and we've already kind of touched on it through meditation or mindfulness. But one of the things that I've found for myself in this vein is my own spiritual journey, which I've made a hierarchy of priorities within my life of my mental health, my physical health, and my spiritual health. And
Mm-hmm.
understanding that if I have this very simple triad of these are the things that I need to be constantly attending to and
Yeah.
prioritizing, then I can allow myself the space for fluidity and creativity and movement in my life, as long as these three key elements are being attended and nurtured.
Yep.
So the change that I've made lately is with spirituality. As interesting as I feel myself returning to some of the practices of my childhood, which is that my spirituality is now scheduled.
Really?
So I used to go to church as a kid every Sunday, and we often went on Wednesdays and sometimes on Fridays or Saturdays as well. And so structured spirituality was a big part of my youth. And nowadays I've scheduled my spirituality in a learning. I'm participating in a course of study that's a year long, and it's every single week at the same time. I'm there for 2.5 hours and
Wow,
in
cool.
this mode of growth and expansiveness. And the simplicity of it is it's structured, it's scheduled.
Mm.
I'm not like trying to fit it in if I can.
Yep.
It's literally this time is on the calendar every single week for that practice. And so the structure sets us free. It's incredible how powerful structure it is towards simplicity.
Yeah, I agree.
And the and I have to recognize is that I've had some challenges with this. Not multitasking, not allowing distraction, not picking up my phone while I'm doing that. Simply just being present for one thing at a time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's funny, again, the entrepreneur stuff, but the speaking thing, I'm doing this thing called a power hour because I've never really prospected ever in my life. But if you really want a successful speaking career, you have to be putting yourself out there, applying for events and stuff like that, and tracking that stuff like CRM, like customer relationship management, like really knowing who and when to respond, all that stuff that I understand, but never really did or built skills around. And it's amazing, genuinely. Again, back to consistency, but the simplicity of a quote unquote power hour where all I'm allowed to do is send applications to events or reach out to people that might be able to connect me to a paid opportunity, that type of stuff. But I'm not joking. I'll pick up my phone, I'll swipe it open, I'll click on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll be like, no. And I'll immediately close it. But it's just like undoing that habitual distraction is so useful. So I'm loving the power hour experience, and I'm into it.
Yeah, that dopamine addiction is brutal, eh? Just constantly feeling a need for more, for some other thing to be
Ugh.
going on. I've really become aware of it. But I've started doing the version of this where I need to, at some point in the morning, I need to pick up my phone and start to engage through the different things I have scheduled, like look at my calendar, look at the weather forecast, decide how it's all my day is going to play out.
Yep.
But I've become very structured with when the first time I pick up my phone in the day, I go straight to what I need and out again. Like as soon it's just go, 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 get in and out of that thing and put it back down and then go back to the simplicity of a life without it, right? Like
Yeah.
just make my breakfast, do my routine, move through my actions, and then
Yeah.
sit down to that same thing, like that power hour mentality of like, I'm not just going to get spinning around doing stuff. I'm going to focus on what I'm really doing right now.
It's I keep saying this word this episode, but it's liberating in a lot of ways. It is really liberating. It's liberating from those intrusive habits that apps and social media and stuff like that can layer onto us that we allow. You know what I mean? But I really am empowered about the idea of building really better habits. You mentioned the triad, the simplicity of your triad of the mental health, physical health, spiritual health. And that absolutely, undeniably is what I'm doing too. I think I framed it this year as consistency is my word. And it's in meditation, AKA spiritual health, mental health, whatever, exercise, and healthy eating. So this is really more like physical, seemingly physical, but it's so connected to my mental health, my healthy eating. You know what I mean? So it's like that for me is very simple, but those three things I'm required in a really good way, a way that I've chosen to be consistent. And I'm excited about all of it, to be honest, even though I know it's going to be hard sometimes too. But
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of hard things, just like I'm not afraid of my feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. It's worth mentioning that if my goals for life are to nourish and to nurture my mental, physical, and spiritual health, and to really embody this, that if I've done something every day to nourish any one of those things, ideally all three, but
Yeah.
if my day has accomplished something towards one of those things, then I should allow myself a feeling of contentment, a feeling of ease, a feeling of accomplishment. And it's been a battle. It really has been for me to come to reach a place of peace with myself to say, today was a success. I can feel like I did, showed up for myself today simply because I went out for a hike.
Yeah.
That action qualifies today as winning. And this is the thing. It's like, I've been ill lately, and that's been giving me this framework on life. I've been feeling some fear around end of life, feeling like, well, okay, well, if this were to taper off really quickly, like if things were to go downhill really fast, how would I look at each day as a value? How would I go, did I really enjoy the life that I had to live today while I was alive? And what was really most important to me? Did I want to go out chasing after money? Did I need to collect more things? Or do I find the most value in my life by sharing it with the people that I care about the most, checking in with those that I love, or
Yeah.
by being out in nature, or by going flying, or whatever the thing is that fulfills me the most?
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's a powerful filter. It's a very powerful filter to
Uh,
really consider end of life. Those are exercises that people do to elicit clarity. Yeah, like simplicity of mind. Steve Jobs talked about that all the time. He joked about there's nothing more clarifying. I forget how he said it exactly, but there's nothing more clarifying than remembering we're going to die,
yep.
you know? And, even just like bucket list classes that I've done in the past. That's a prompt that we use because it really helps us really, again, simplify, but narrow in and like like ground with what really matters to us, what most calls to us.
Yeah. One of my best friends and I, Brad Chatelier, he's a listener of the program. He and I have chatted at length. Hey, Brad. We've chatted at length about how we prioritize our daily actions. Like, what is this year going to look like? And we talked about like basically actually living like we have 3 years left to live.
Wow. That's powerful.
That's the filter, that's the top filter. You got 3 years left. Everything else outside of that doesn't really matter. It's like, what would you do with your life if you only had 2 or 3 years left? Make those choices today and live the life that empowers the most beautiful life in that time.
Well, everybody listening, if you have thoughts on that prompt, we want to hear them.
Yeah.
Like, what would you do? And Jay, I so appreciate your sharing always,
You as well.
especially about the hard stuff that you're currently working through. I can only imagine how difficult that is. And I respect your willingness to help others feel supported and seeing you and your experience too.
Thank you. Yeah, and I always love talking with you, Mel. Thanks for everybody for listening today. Please feel free to reach out and leave a comment on YouTube or hit us up on Instagram. It's always a pleasure. We love you.
Love you guys.